If you're interested in learning how to train for a half marathon, then here is your 11-step plan. If you're going from running a little bit to now training for a half, this episode is for you. You're listening to the Best You podcast, home to the 10-week transformation, where we help you lose fat, build muscle, and gain confidence. My name is Nick Carrier, and I've done personal training and group fitness since 2016 and have coached 512 people to transform their body and their habits in our 10-week transformation program. My mission is to help you become the healthiest, most confident version of yourself so you can get closer to your best you. If you're ready to learn about how to train for a half marathon, then here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10WT Tips. Today's episode is very specific. Today's episode is if you're somebody who wants to dabble in a half marathon, then here's an 11-step plan. And in all honesty, I'm doing this for a few reasons. I'm doing this, one, because this is the person that I was when I was a senior in college. When I was a senior in college, I ran my first half marathon, and I didn't really know exactly how to train for it, and so I just kind of made up a little bit of a plan myself. Then, fast forward a number of years, after having been a trainer for a while, I did another half marathon at the beginning of 2022 and actually trained more specifically for it and did really well, and actually got first in my age group at the Chattanooga half marathon that I did. And the training for it really led me to being confident and feeling really good going into it. And so I want to be able to share that with you guys. And I'm signed up to do another half marathon at the beginning of 2024 with my girlfriend. And my girlfriend is actually somebody who is kind of somebody who's a little bit of a runner, but now training for a half marathon. And so I don't know if she'll listen to this episode or not, but this is for the person who, you know what, a half marathon would be pretty fun to do, but it's kind of a little scary because 13.1 miles. And so this is your 11-step plan to make sure that you are ready both physically and mentally going into a half marathon. So I'm going to rattle off these steps relatively quickly. So if this episode pertains to you, make sure you take out a notepad or a pencil and paper and get ready to jot these down. Number one is I would start with a training plan 3 months from race day or 12 weeks from race day. That'll give you ample time and opportunity to build up the physical endurance and the cardiovascular endurance so that you're set up for success come race day. Number two is to get running shoes if you don't have them already. And I would recommend going to the next step of going to a local shoe store around you and getting them fit based off of your foot style and based off of your running style. I know that when I first started to get into running, I had some injuries that held me back. I had some calf injuries, some feet injuries, some ankle injuries. Not necessarily injuries, but pain points that held me back from running a little bit. So I had to take some time off. And so I needed to make sure that I went to that next degree of specificity and individuality for myself and going to get a shoe that was going to work best for me. Because the last thing that you want to do is train week after week after week after week after week for your half marathon, and then leading up to it, you get injured and you're not able to actually participate. So you want to make sure you get shoes that work, running shoes that actually work for you. And I recommend going to a local shoe store and getting fitted yourself. Number three, I would want you to ensure that you are implementing injury prevention exercises into your training routine. Things like tibia raises, and these are things that you can look up if you don't know what these are already, but tibia raises, calf raises, hip mobility, some banded lateral work, some single leg work. These are all injury prevention exercises to make sure that you stay healthy and staying physically healthy as you go throughout your training process. Number four is to set a goal time to the best of your ability. Now, for example, if you've never run a half marathon, you probably don't know to a great degree what your goal should be, how fast you should run it, what your average mile pace should be. But if you're somebody who runs a little bit, you might have some sort of idea. So I just would encourage you to set a goal time to the best of your ability right now, and then we can refine what that goal time is a little bit later on as we get closer to actual race day. But go ahead and set a goal time to the best of your ability. Step number 5 is start with 2 days of running a week at your current mileage or slightly more, and keep track of your pace if possible. Now, I know that was kind of 3 things all in one, but starting with 2 days of running at your current mileage or slightly more. Now, what that means is, what is your current weekly mileage? And it might vary up a little bit. Maybe some weeks you're running 4 miles, maybe some weeks you're running 6 miles, maybe some weeks you're running 5 miles. Like, what is your current average mileage that you get on a weekly basis? And let's start with that mileage as the foundation. So if you currently run, let's say 5 miles a week, maybe you do 2 runs, one of which is a 3-mile run, another which is a 2-mile run. Or maybe you start slightly above that. Maybe you start with 6 miles in week 1 and broken up into 2 runs. That's 3 miles and 3 miles. And I would recommend, if you can, use an app like Strava or use your Fitbit or use an Apple Watch and keep track of what your average pace is. When you are keeping track of your average pace, you are more motivated to improve that pace as time goes by, and you're more self-aware as to how well you are or are not pacing yourself consistently across your runs. So starting with 2 days of running a week at your current mileage, or maybe a little bit more, and keep track of your pace if possible. Step number 6 is bump up your total mileage by 10 to 15% every single week for the first 6 weeks, and break it up in a way that makes most sense for you. So, like I said, maybe you start with a current weekly mileage of 6 miles and you break it up 3 and 3. If we want to increase that total mileage by 10 to 15%, what that might look like is week 1, 6 miles, week 2, 6.5, week 3, 7, week 4, 8, week 5, 8.5, week 6, 9.5. If that means that you break up that total mileage into 2 runs, do 2 runs. If that means you need to break it up into 3 runs, do 3 runs. But increase your total mileage by 10 to 15% and break it up in a way that makes most sense for you and your schedule and things like that. Step number 7 is, after the first 6 weeks, continue to bump up your total mileage by 10 to 15%, but break it up into 2 short/medium runs and 1 long run. So if we're picking up where we left off, week 7 might be 10.5 miles. I would recommend that you do 2 3-mile runs and then a 4.5-mile run. Next week would be 12 miles. Maybe that's a 3-mile run, a 4-mile run, and a 5-mile run. The next week would be 13.5. Maybe that's a 3-mile run, a 4-mile run, and then a 6.5-mile run. I'll give you one more example. The next week might be 15 total miles. Maybe do a 3-mile run, a 4-mile run, and an 8-mile run. The idea is you want to have one of those runs during the week really push your endurance to the next level. And so continue to bump up your total mileage by 10 to 15%, but break it up into 2 short/medium runs and 1 long run. Step number 8 is have a taper week in the week leading up to race day. If the race day is, let's say, on a Saturday, then you want the entire week, the Sunday to Friday leading up to Saturday race day, to be a taper week, meaning you decrease your overall mileage considerably. You almost might want to cut your total mileage in half during that taper week so that you're fresh and ready to go come race day. Now, before I go into the last 3 steps, I want you guys to make sure that you go check out the virtual 10-week transformation free trial. It's a 1-week free trial where you get to try out 3 of the video workouts, you get 20 healthy recipes, and you also get a breakdown of the goal setting framework that I teach everybody in the 10-week transformation. To get that for free, go to nickcarrier.com/free trial. Again, nickcarrier.com/free trial. So we're in your 11-step plan. We're on step number 9. We just talked about taper week. Now, right before your race day, you want to set a new goal based on how you did in your training. You want to set a new goal based off of the feedback that you got from your training, your new overall goal and your new average mile pace goal. Then step number 10 is don't dramatically change your eating habits leading up to race day. Eat what you've been eating all along. I've gotten questions a number of times in the past of people who are getting ready to go into a race and they think, okay, do I need a carb load? Like, what should I be eating to make sure I'm really ready to go before race day? The worst thing that you can do before the race is to completely change your eating habits compared to what your body has been used to in the past. I mean, say, for example, if in week 8 of your training or week 9 of your training, you do an 8-mile run, and before that 8-mile run, you didn't eat anything, or maybe you had a banana, and some nuts, then that's a pretty good indication that that is going to be enough fuel for yourself in race day. Obviously, 8 miles is a little bit shorter than 13.1, but I'll tell you from my experience, when I was training for my last half marathon, and this is the same thing that I'll do for this upcoming half marathon, is most of the times when I run early in the morning. So I run fasted. I haven't didn't eat anything when I woke up. I had a glass of water and a cup of coffee, and then I'll go run. And I usually end up feeling really good just on that. But before race day, what I'll do is I'll probably have a banana, but I probably won't have too much more than that. I might have a banana and maybe a piece of bread, but not much more than that, because you just might need a little bit extra energy to get you through those last couple of miles. And then lastly, step 11 is on race day. Don't come out of the gates too strong. Stick to your pace and trust your training. If you've ever done a race like this before, it is exciting. It's exhilarating. There's a lot of people around. There's a lot of people participating. There's a lot of people watching. And we can get caught up in the moment and just come out of the gates, guns a-blazing, because of the hype of race day. But that is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to set the future version of yourself up for failure. You don't want to set the version of yourself that you're going to be at mile 7 up for failure by crushing mile 1. Stick to your pace. Trust your training. Now, this episode was jam-packed, but I hope that if you're thinking about running a half marathon, maybe at the end of this calendar year, at the beginning of the next calendar year, or at any point, that you use this plan. Like, this plan could be sold for hundreds and hundreds of dollars by a running coach out there, but I just gave it to you for completely free. But you've got to do the work to write it down and apply it to your situation and your goal. I hope this helped. I hope this helps you achieve your health and fitness goals. Again, make sure you try out the 1-week free trial of the virtual 10-week transformation by going to nickcarrier.com/free trial. If you need some structure, if you need motivation, if you need somebody to hold you accountable to get you to that next level, then the 10-week transformation is for you. But you can try out the free trial at nickcarrier.com/free trial. Other than that, I hope this 11-step plan helps you hit your half marathon goals and ultimately helps you get closer and closer to your best you.